Hi, and welcome. I'm Laura Lee, and today we're diving into a topic that impacts millions of people every year: car accidents. Every day, lives are changed in an instant by car crashes, whether it's a distracted driver, a drunk driver, or even poor road conditions. The aftermath of an accident can leave victims with devastating injuries, mounting medical bills, and a long road to recovery. If you've been injured in a car accident, you know how much it turns your world upside down. You're dealing with physical pain, emotional stress, and financial insecurity, all while trying to navigate the legal system to get the justice that you deserve. But what happens when the bills start piling up before your case is resolved? What do you do when you can't work, but your rent, utilities, and medical expenses still need to be paid? That's where pre-settlement funding comes in. And in today's episode, we're going to explore how pre-settlement funding can provide relief to car accident victims, share real-life stories from people who used funding to get through tough times, and explain how this support can help you focus on recovery and fight for the settlement you truly deserve. If you or someone you know has been injured in a car accident, this episode is for you. Let's get started. The financial toll of car accidents. Let's start by talking about what happens after a car accident. Not just the immediate aftermath, but the ripple effect it has on your life. For many people, a car accident is the start of a financial nightmare, and here's why. 1. Medical expenses. From emergency room visits to surgeries, physical therapy, and medication, the cost of medical care adds up quickly. Even with insurance, you're often left with out-of-pocket expenses that can feel impossible to manage. 2. Lost income. If your injuries prevent you from working, your regular paycheck disappears. That loss of income can leave you struggling to cover basic expenses like rent, utilities, and groceries. And 3. Unexpected costs. On top of medical bills and lost wages, you might also face unexpected costs like car repairs, transportation to doctor appointments, or hiring help for childcare or household tasks. And then there's the emotional toll. The stress of dealing with these financial challenges while recovering from your injuries can feel overwhelming. This is the reality for many car accident plaintiffs. Even if you have a strong legal case and are pursuing a settlement, the legal process takes time, sometimes months or even years. And while you're waiting for justice, the bills don't stop. That's why pre-settlement funding is such a powerful tool. It's designed to fill the gap between your expenses today and the settlement you're fighting for. How pre-settlement funding works for car accident plaintiffs. So how exactly does pre-settlement funding help car accident plaintiffs? Let's break it down. First, quick financial relief after a car accident. One of the biggest challenges is the immediacy of financial needs. Medical bills don't wait, and neither does your landlord or utility company. Pre-settlement funding can provide the cash you need in as little as 24 to 48 hours, allowing you to cover urgent expenses without delay. 2. No credit checks or monthly payments. Unlike traditional loans, pre-settlement funding doesn't require a credit check, and there are no monthly payments to worry about. Approval is based solely on the strength of your case, not your financial history. 3. Risk-free support. Here's the best part. If your case doesn't resolve in your favor, you don't repay the funding. This means you can get the help you need without the fear of taking on additional debt. And 4. Focus on recovery. By relieving financial stress, pre-settlement funding allows you to focus on what really matters: your health and your case. You don't have to feel pressured to accept a low-ball statement just to pay your bills. Let's bring this to life with a real-life story. Maria was driving home from work one evening when she was T-boned at an intersection by a driver who ran a red light. The impact was so severe that Maria's car was totaled, and she was rushed to the hospital with multiple injuries. including a fractured pelvis and a concussion. Maria's recovery was long and difficult. She required surgery, months of physical therapy, and follow-up care with specialists. Because of her injuries, Maria couldn't return to her job as a retail manager, leaving her with no income to cover her growing medical bills and household expenses. Her attorney reassured her that she had a strong personal injury case, but the insurance company was dragging its feet. Maria was terrified of losing her apartment and falling even farther behind on her bills. That's when her attorney suggested pre-settlement funding through Stonewood Funding. Maria applied and received her cash advance within 24 hours. She used the money to pay her rent, keep up with her utility bills, and cover the cost of her prescriptions. She told me it wasn't just about the money. It was about having one less thing to worry about. I could finally focus on my recovery without feeling like my whole world was falling apart. When her case eventually settled, Maria's attorney secured a fair settlement that reflected the true impact of her injuries. To really understand how pre-settlement funding can transform the lives of car accident plaintiffs, I want to share a few more stories. These aren't just stories about money. These are stories about resilience, hope, and finding a way forward during one of the hardest times in life. Let's start with Nick. Nick was on his way to pick up his kids from school when everything changed in an instant. He was sitting at a red light, going over what he'd make for dinner that night, when a delivery truck slammed into the back of his car. The impact was so strong that it pushed his car into the intersection and left him with severe back pain that wouldn't go away. Nick was rushed to the hospital where he was diagnosed with a herniated disc that required surgery. After the surgery, he faced weeks of painful physical therapy just to regain his mobility. Nick was self-employed, running a small home repair business, and his injury left him unable to work. Without an income, the bills started piling up. First, his mortgage payment was overdue, then his utilities, and before long, Nick couldn't even afford groceries. But the hardest part wasn't just the financial stress. It was what it did to him emotionally. Nick told me, "I felt like I'd failed my family. My kids didn't understand why we couldn't go out for pizza, or why we had to keep the lights off in some rooms to save electricity." It broke my heart. His attorney reassured him that he had a strong case against the trucking company's insurance provider, but the company was playing hardball. They offered Nick a settlement that wouldn't even cover his medical bills, let alone the cost of the pain and suffering he had endured. And that's when Nick's attorney suggested pre-settlement funding through Stonewood Funding. At first, Nick was hesitant. He thought, isn't this just another loan? What if I can't pay it back? But then he learned that pre-settlement funding is completely risk-free, meaning he wouldn't owe anything if his case didn't resolve in his favor. So he applied right away. And within 48 hours, Nick had the cash he needed to catch up on his mortgage, pay his utility bills, and buy groceries for his family. He could even go out for pizza. But more than that, Nick said the funding gave him something much more valuable: peace of mind. It felt like someone finally understood what I was going through, he told me. I didn't just get money. I got a lifeline. I could focus on getting better and being there for my family without constantly worrying about how I would keep the lights on. When Nick's case finally settled, his attorney secured a fair settlement that reflected the true impact of his injuries, something that wouldn't have been possible if Nick had been forced to settle early out of desperation. Next, I want to share Emily's story. Emily was a young professional with a bright future ahead of her. She worked as a graphic designer and she loved her job. She often put in extra hours just because she was so passionate about her projects. But one rainy evening on her way home, a distracted driver who was texting ran a stop sign and collided with Emily's car. The crash left Emily with a broken leg, a dislocated shoulder, and a concussion. She spent weeks in the hospital and months in physical therapy, trying to regain her strength and mobility. For someone who relied on her hands and creativity to make a living, The injuries were devastating. Emily's medical bills spiraled out of control. Even with health insurance, she was responsible for a large portion of her hospital stay, therapy sessions, and medications. On top of that, she couldn't work, so her income disappeared overnight. I remember sitting at my kitchen table with a pile of bills in front of me, Emily said. I couldn't stop crying. I felt like my life was falling apart, and I had no idea how I was going to dig myself out of that hole. Her attorney reassured her she had a strong case, but the legal process would take time. The insurance company representing the other driver was offering a settlement that barely covered her immediate medical bills, let alone her lost wages or the long-term impact of her injuries. Emily's attorney recommended pre-settlement funding, explaining how it could give her the financial stability to keep going while they fought for a fair settlement. Emily applied online, and within 24 hours, she received the funding she needed. She used the money to pay off her medical bills, catch up on her rent, and even buy groceries without relying on help from friends or family. Emily told me it wasn't just about the money. It was about getting my independence back. I didn't feel helpless anymore. I could finally focus on my recovery and my case without the constant cloud of stress hanging over me. Thanks to the financial relief provided by pre-settlement funding, Emily's attorney had the time and resources to fight for a settlement that reflected the full extent of her injuries and losses. Finally, let me share Tony's story. Tony was a delivery driver, working hard to support his wife and 2 young kids. One morning, while making his usual route, a speeding SUV ran a red light and slammed into the side of Tony's van. The accident left Tony with multiple injuries, including a fractured collarbone and a torn ligament in his knee. He was unable to work for months and faced several surgeries to repair the damage. Tony's family relied on his income to make ends meet, and without it, they were struggling. His wife picked up a part-time job, but it wasn't enough to cover all their expenses. They were falling behind on their mortgage, and they worried about losing their home. Tony's attorney knew the case was strong, but the insurance company was dragging out the process, hoping Tony would settle for less. That's when he learned about pre-settlement funding. After applying with Stonewood Funding, Tony received his advance within 48 hours. He used the money to cover his mortgage, pay for his kids' school supplies, and even keep up with his physical therapy sessions. Tony said it wasn't just financial relief, it was emotional relief. I felt like someone believed in me and my case, and that gave me the confidence to keep fighting. When Tony's case finally settled, he received a fair outcome that allowed him to rebuild his life and focus on his family. What do all of these stories have in common? They show that pre-settlement funding isn't just about paying bills. It's about giving plaintiffs the strength, stability, and peace of mind to focus on what matters most, their recovery and their case. If you're facing challenges like Nick, Emily, or Tony, I want you to know you are not alone and there is help available. When you're recovering from a car accident, financial stability is more than just a convenience. It's a lifeline. Pre-settlement funding isn't just about paying bills. It's about giving you the freedom to heal, the time to fight for a fair settlement, and the peace of mind to know you're not alone. Here's why it makes such a difference. First, it prevents crisis. Quick access to funding can stop evictions, keep the lights on, and ensure you get the medical care you need. 2, it relieves stress. Financial relief allows you to focus on your health, your recovery, and your family. And 3rd, it empowers you. When you're not under financial pressure, you're in a stronger position to negotiate for the settlement you deserve. If you've been injured in a car accident and are struggling to make ends meet while waiting for your settlement, I want you to know that there's help available. You don't have to face this alone. Pre-settlement funding can give you the financial relief you need to stay strong, focus on your recovery, and fight for the justice you deserve. Getting started is easy. Visit stonewoodfunding.com and fill out a simple application. We'll work directly with your attorney to review your case. Once approved, you can receive your funds in as little as 24 hours. Thank you for spending this time with me today. If this episode resonated with you, or if you know someone who might benefit from pre-settlement funding, please share this episode. Together, we can help more people find the strength and support they need during difficult times. Until next time, I'm Laura Lee, reminding you that life doesn't wait for justice, and neither should you.